back to our channel.
Thanks, bud.
We thought we would just let Harry
Introduce
us today.
Yes.
He was our camera guy. So, but hey guys, we are glad to be with you. It's been a little while. Sorry.
For sure. Yes.
We've been so swamped with work. We've been so busy. Thank you, Lord.
Yes.
But we want to talk to y'all. We celebrated our 20-year anniversary a week ago Wednesday, and so we just wanted to talk to y'all about what it looks like to be married for 20 years, and just really encourage you.
It looks like a blur. It looks
that it does.
It is like so fast.
It's hard to believe it's been 20 years, but it's hard to believe that it hasn't been. Like I can't imagine it any other way, or like can't remember it any other way, but it's hard to believe it's been 20 years.
Yeah, and then some people just ask, how can you be married with one person for so long? I mean, we've already outlived our parents' marriages. Of course, I mean, most of you know that we've come from divorced homes and stuff like that, and which it's a miracle in itself that we've been married for 20 years. Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest, I would say the biggest asset is learning communication, learning basically that we ironed out some things before we got married, like discipline. I mean, Wendy was already married. She already had 2 children. She had Claire and Emma before we met, and so man, that was something we had to tackle before.
Mm-hmm. We had to talk discipline before most people do. So we had to make sure we were on the same page. And I mean, to be honest, there's times now we're not on the same page, but we hear each other out and then we come to an agreement. But it's easier now because we trust each other, and we trust that, we're just at a different place. Like, we trust that we're thinking, to help that child, not necessarily just to discipline that child. Yes. And there's a trust factor there that not everybody has fully developed yet.
I mean, we've learned to discipline to the heart and not to the rule. So we don't want to be like the Pharisees and walk around, oh, you broke this rule, wham, we're going to break your back or something like that.
And every kid's different, so discipline for one may look different than discipline for the other. But for marriage-wise, like, discipline is a big issue with kids. But we have to communicate, and we have to keep this healthy.
Yes.
Meaning,
the relationship.
There may be times like yesterday, we closed ourselves off in our room for him and I to talk about some things, and it's okay to do that. It's okay to take time for yourselves and communicate with each other. Yes. And we highly encourage that.
And when that looks different for us, we do that during the day. We do have older kids that help watch the younger ones, but our youngest one is 7. So she's 6. Oops, man, you're the one. I'm usually the one good enough. Good
with numbers.
Good with the numbers. But yeah, our youngest one's 6. So I mean, if your oldest one's 4 and you've got like a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old running around, we probably wouldn't be good to lock yourself up during the day.
No, but at night, take the time.
That's
I know
right.
You're tired. Make bedtime earlier.
7 o'clock.
Yeah,
7:30.
Our kids' bedtime was between 7 and 7:30, and you might say that's really early. You know what? It was, but it worked for us because typically, if you put a kid down at 7, they're not asleep till 8 o'clock. So we knew that. We started that young with our kids. I mean, early on, but we knew we had to have time with each other. Mm-hmm. We have to communicate. As a female, I need to communicate with him about, what has gone on all day, because I'm home all day with the kids. There's things that we need to communicate about. So I just encourage you. I encourage you, if you don't put your kids to bed early and you're looking for time to spend with your spouse, put them to bed early.
Yeah, because we're going to fall asleep. If you try to talk to a man at 10 o'clock, we're going to fall asleep while you're talking.
If they worked all day.
Mm-hmm.
most of the time.
And she'd get upset.
I would.
You don't love me. You won't listen to me.
Yes. But I just we learned early on good communication. We had a great pastor who really encouraged that between married couples, and he was very big on marriage and communication, and we were very blessed in that aspect. There's a lot of times when it comes to communication, there's things you don't want to talk about. I highly encourage you to talk about them. You know, even if it's struggles that you have, you know, talk about them. This should be your best friend. And if you can't communicate with your best friend, then who are you going to communicate with? But there's things, I would say most things are not off the table when it comes to communicating with your spouse.
Right.
You know, just really be open with one another.
Yes. And you just have to be in agreement on things. Just like even, you know, some kids, you know, in some relationships, the kids come between the parents. You know, the kids like to divide and conquer. So we've turned that around on the kids. You know, like, you know, where a kid will come to the dad and the dad says no. Like, hey, can I watch TV? No. And then he goes to the mom, and the mom goes, yes. And the dad goes in there and sees the kid watching TV and like, hey, I told you no. Well, mom said yes. And so where does the frustration lie? The dad goes and gets the mom and say, hey, I told him no. You know, when our kids, we've laid the rule down. If one parent says no, and you go and ask the other parent, and they say yes, guess who's getting in trouble? It's going to be the kid. And the kid knows that they've all tried it at least once or twice. And once they saw that they're the ones that are getting in trouble, they stop it. And usually it's, oh, okay, you got to watch that little bit of TV? Well, try not having TV for a week. That gets their attention. And it keeps you on the same page. It keeps you from arguing. Because what we try to do is we try to create boundaries, or we created rules that protected our relationship. So we didn't have to, well, why did you let him have this? And I told him no, and da-da-da-da. That kid knows. And that kid knows it's going to be taken away from him for a while if he does it. So they measure the consequences, and they're like, okay, this is not worth it. This immediate gratification, instant gratification is not worth it because it's going to cost me in the long run. So we protect our relationship, even with the little kids, our blessings running around that has the sinful nature inside of them that try to get what they want any way they can. So, and that preserves our relationship. So, and you know, and another thing we do is we try to do date nights. Now, date nights looked a little different when we had little kids and we didn't have a lot of money.
Yes, sometimes that would be just hanging out at home when the kids went to bed. Sometimes
it would, you know, like we'd barbecue on the front on the driveway in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We'd get filet mignons once every other week or once a month, whatever, and we would do that.
The cheap ones from Walmart.
Yes.
And the kids would have hot dogs.
Yeah.
But like that's one of the things that needs to be held, and I guess make sure you're doing it.
Yes.
But another thing is attitudes in the home. If there's attitudes in the home, maybe there's attitudes from the kids, or I don't know, as far as different what's the word, like just how your kids are behaving. And as a mom, stop and reflect. How are you behaving? Because your kids will mimic you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I've had kids that will mimic my behaviors. Will mimic my behaviors maybe that's I'm raising my voice at the kids a lot. Like I'm yelling at the kids, and then I would have one that I would see yelling at the younger kids, and I'd be like, oh, that's from me. Or maybe I see that they have attitude with their dad, and I'm like, oh, that's me. So I just encourage you, if there's things going on in the home that you recognize, you need to say, you need to look and you need to reflect inward, and you need to see what you're doing. How, what are you doing that your kids are copying? So anyhow, we have a
Yes, and yeah, we have a Momo showing us a picture right now. So, and also anger. That was something that, man, God's still working on me on. I mean, I've come a long way, but you let your guard down around the ones you love, and you start seeing a kid showing anger. And you're like, oh man, I gotta make sure I'm not doing that.
But don't not discipline
Right.
because you feel guilty. That's one of the things I will encourage you. Even though I would see the behavior, I would still discipline it, but I'd also apologize for my behavior. So don't not discipline out of guilt.
Yes.
It's not good. It won't lead to good things. So with discipline, but apologize if the Lord shows you and you recognize